Welcome to the Cruise Lifestyle. Hi folks, welcome once again to the Cruise Lifestyle. My name is Matt Halloran, I'm your cruise director. Thank you for joining us today. Just let you know a little bit of what we're going to go through in the show today. So we're going to catch up with Bruce Piper, who's the editor-in-chief of Cruise Weekly, and he's going to give us a rundown of the latest news and things that have been happening in the world of cruise over the last little while. So we'll catch up with him shortly. And we're also going to have a chat with Walter Nand. Walter is the founder and director of a company called Unique Cruises. And we're going to have a chat with him about something a little bit different in the world of cruising that you might not have considered, but is, absolutely, I'll let you have a look. But anyway, it's a wonderful thing. So before we get started, well, actually not before we get started, we will get started now and we'll go straight to the news. So welcome Bruce, thanks for coming along, and
thanks for having me.
We're going to have a little bit of a news segment. We'll just run through some of the things that have been happening in the world of cruise over the last little bit. Thanks for joining us.
No worries.
So just going through some of the stories, I guess, that have come out in the last week or so. Carnival have released their 2050 goals, so they actually have a bit of a sustainability sort of focus.
Yeah, so Carnival Corporation, like all cruise lines, they're very keen to, show their environmental credentials. And I think it is more than lip service. They definitely, all of the big guys have got people in charge of their sort of triple bottom line, so that they're not just about making money, but also about recognising that for cruising to be sustainable long term, you've actually got to treat the planet pretty well and the destinations that you go to. And so this is all part of that. So it's a pretty interesting read. Yes, they've laid out this roadmap to 2050. And so it's pretty aspirational, 30-year timeline, but, a bunch of different areas. So it is about the environment, but also destination management. So, making sure that places they visit, they've got a light footprint, equality, diversity, all those buzzwords, and it's all kind of centered around the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. They've definitely made major strides, and these reports, which come out every year, will continually track how they're going towards those goals.
They've made an agreement overseas in terms of COVID testing.
Yeah, so this is in line, obviously all of the cruise lines are rolling out extensive health and safety protocols. In the US, that now includes, I think for Carnival, it's 72-hour pre-departure negative PCR test for COVID. And that's obviously, in Australia, you can just get a COVID test from anywhere because the government pays for them, but that's not the case in the States. So what Carnival's done is they've got a partnership basically with a big group called Quest Diagnostics, and it's basically just makes it easy when you're going to, it's sort of part of the pre-departure procedures. You can make an appointment through through the various brand websites, Princess, Holland America, Seabourn, I think it is at the moment, and they will then sort of direct you to your local pharmacy. I think a lot of them are Walgreens, and you can get your test, and so it sort of just simplifies that whole process. What is interesting there is that some of the other lines, Royal has just shortened that, and I guess just indicates the movable feast that COVID is. Royal is now requiring that test to be 48 hours prior to departure, not 72, i.e. 2 days rather than 3. And that's because the CDC, the regulator, the Centers for Disease Control, they've suggested that is a better guideline because of the infectiousness of the Delta variant. I suspect that the Carnival thing will end up being a shorter time frame as well, but at the moment it's 3 days pre-departure. Going to go to 2, but yes, again, look, they're doing everything they can to make cruising as safe as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, in Australia we haven't really started yet, but P&O have mandated testing.
Vaccination actually.
That's what I meant.
So yes, mandated vaccination, and I think that's a really good indication of the high standards that they're going to have. Because I would have thought that probably there's a certain cohort in the P&O demographic who might not be so keen on vaccinations, and so I think that it's just a really great sign of leadership that they're putting that in.
And nobody else has followed suit at this point?
Not yet, although we haven't seen all of the fine detail. There's the Cruise Lines International Association. They have got guidelines which sort of are a minimum standard for all of the cruise lines, and that is testing at the moment globally. Now in Australia, we don't know what it's going to look like, and as per my background, if we can get to 80% double vaccination, we hope that there will be some sort of movement on that front. But I think the cruise lines will do anything that is required based on the medical advice to be allowed to get going again locally.
I've noticed just on that point, in terms of government and all that sort of stuff, that Dan Tehan, the tourism minister, has sort of said he's gung-ho for it, but it's not necessarily the rubber hitting the road at the moment.
No, look, I was in a session with him a few days ago, and it's absolutely clear he's got the message, he gets it, and he understands that although these are foreign cruise ships, which is part of I think the government opposition to it is that these are massive foreign corporations, but the massive amount of people like you and I who depend on a vibrant cruise industry for our own livelihoods. So Tian gets it, but I just got the hint that he's pushing the barrow, but it's definitely he was right on message. It's subject to the health advice, and I was a little discouraged that I think he seemed hopeful that once we get to 80%, we would be able to maybe think about starting to plan for a reopening of cruise. Whereas, of course, the cruise industry would like to say, right now, have a plan that when we get to 80%, we're allowed to do something, because of course, the time required to get the ships mobilised, they're on the other side of the world in many cases. They've got to get crews, etc., etc. Yep. It's a 3 month minimum, and so it would be much better for all of us if we could have that if within 3 months, we will be at 80%. Let's activate it right now and say that, maybe 1st of January or 17th of December or whatever the government's talking about. But yes, I don't know. I think Dan's got the message, but I don't think everyone else has.
All right, a couple of good news stories. Silver Sea have announced an Antarctic season from Chile.
Yeah, so this is interesting, and I think it definitely highlights the importance of engagement with governments, and so Silver Sea, rather than I guess they've had no luck with Argentina, where from Ushuaia, which is where the Antarctic cruises usually depart from. Argentina's still got a ban on all US arrivals, and of course US passengers are very important to these cruise lines. So Chile has sort of come in, and Punta Arenas, I think it's called, which is quite near Ushuaia on the same sort of that very southern peninsula of South America. They've arranged that they can home port out of there for Antarctica. And again, that's given them a bit of certainty. They'll have procedures, and it's definitely a partnership with the Chilean government. And yeah, it's absolutely fantastic news. It means that a South American season will be able to go ahead. Whether Australians will be able to join it, who knows? Because our
we're talking 21-22.
Yeah, we're talking this upcoming. I think the first departure is early December, when Australia's borders will still be closed according to the current biosecurity ban. That might change. Who knows? But anyway, it's a step in the right direction.
Absolutely. And moving over to America, Hurricane Ida, Carnival have actually put up their hand and said, let's give a hand for this. So
so Hurricane Ida, which obviously hit New Orleans, very appropriately, Carnival had a ship on the spot, Carnival Glory, and because it was just about to do some cruises out of New Orleans, and so that ship's been rapidly repurposed to be used for emergency services accommodation through an agreement with FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. And yeah, look, it's a great win-win, and I guess highlights the flexibility of cruise lines and the ability to sort of pivot their operations, like we've all been able to do through this pandemic. But yeah,
it's awesome.
Definitely a great news story.
Yeah, absolutely. You saw in the Channel Islands, there was a bit of a story about a little boat that got a little bit stuck.
Left high and dry, yes. Actually, look, it is interesting. If you Google ships stranded in the Channel Islands, it actually happens quite a lot. I think the tides must be absolutely enormous. And
judging by the pictures, it's huge amount of.
It's as though this they've lifted it up on a crane onto this rock.
Yeah.
Clearly just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And yes, the crew didn't manage to move it in time, and it's stuck high and dry. Quite hilarious.
Very funny. And last of all, Pacific Adventure. Have had the old Golden Princess in dry dock, and
so this is, I think it's in Italy, where they've had it done. But yes, it's now unmistakably a P&O ship. It's got that fantastic Southern Cross all across the bow, and really been made over. I remember talking to the head of Carnival Australia, Stura Mermel, when they did this to, I think it was Pacific Explorer, and the logistics of doing one of these makeovers is just incredible. And I mean, look, it's a little bit easier at the moment because they don't have the pressure to return to service because the ships aren't sailing at the moment. But just to, basically they have everything on the dock. They bring the ship in, and it's like building 1,000 IKEA kitchens in 24 hours. Quite a remarkable makeover, and I think it is building that excitement towards a restart. And I guess absolutely confirms Carnival's strong commitment to the Australian market through that P&O brand. Can't wait to see it cruising in local waters, and man, let's hope it might even be before Christmas.
Yeah, we hope so. I mean, theoretically, yes, but we'll just watch this space, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, thanks, Bruce.
No problem.
Thanks for joining us today. We'll catch up again next week and see what's been happening. Yeah. And great to have you on board and find out a little bit more about what's happening around the world.
Good on you. Thanks, Matt.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, welcome to our conversations segment. Basically, if you've watched previous episodes, this is our section where we actually sort of sit down and have conversations with people in and around the industry just about what they do, various aspects of cruising, related things, and also updates on products that you may or may not know about. So it's basically a segment where we get to know more about cruising and just educate ourselves on some of the different products and things around. So today we're actually catching up with Walter Nand. Walter is the founder and director of Unique Cruising, fairly young business here in Australia, but they concentrate on barge or river barge cruising within Europe. It's a different product, but I'm sure in looking through this you will get to know, and it'll be something that'll definitely get on your bucket list. Welcome, Walter. Thanks for coming along. And we're going to find out a little bit about Unique Cruises and the sort of product and all that sort of thing today. But I guess first off, let's get to know you. You've got a background, I guess, in cruising and things. You've sort of been around the traps for a while, certainly well known in the industry. Where has Walter come from?
Long journey to get to cruising, actually. I am what I term a reluctant cruiser.
Okay.
If you had told me 15 years ago or so that I would actually have my own cruise company, I would have laughed at you because I wouldn't even get on a cruise ship. So it's been an interesting trip. I've been in the travel industry for a very long time and worked in the industry in England and Canada before coming to Australia.
Okay.
And have worked in all facets of the industry through wholesalers and tour companies and tour operators, airlines, mostly in sales roles. But then the companies I've been involved in over the last 15 years have been focused mostly on river cruising.
Okay.
And that's really where my specialty honed in.
Yeah.
And my passion for that just grew and grew year on year, and all the different cruises I did, predominantly through Europe, but some through Asia as well.
Yep.
And it was only a few years ago that I was up in Paris and I had a couple of days off. I had seen these barges up and down over the years and really didn't pay much attention to them because they're kind of small, pretty ugly looking. Really, I was working on 5-star level with the different companies that I worked for in river cruising.
Yep.
And it just, as I said, I didn't really pay much attention to it. And then by chance I got invited to go on board and have a look around, and that just completely changed my world. Because the luxury hotel barges that we represent are still, I don't think, look that flash on the outside, but once you step on board, it's a whole different world, and just opened up a new style of cruising. So when I came back to Australia, I had a look around to who was offering the luxury hotel barges in Europe, and there were a few companies, but I had to really search for the information for them. So I contacted some of the suppliers up in Europe and I said, look, this is what my background is, this is what I'd like to do, I'm going to start Unique Cruises, and launched into, I left my job. I actually had a job that I actually loved, with a product that was really great on river cruising. And if anybody knows me, knows that I was really passionate about that. And I remember sitting in the car park in my company car with my company credit card in my pocket and my resignation letter in my hand. I sat there in the loading dock for 20 minutes before I got out of the car to take my resignation letter upstairs.
Yeah.
To say, look, this is the decision I made, and it was a big call, and that was in 2019. So,
yay! I remember that year. Seems like a lifetime ago.
It was a long time ago. It was a lifetime ago. So the first 6 months were really great, and then of course we went into lockdown. So it's been an interesting journey over the last.
What a great time to start a new business.
Oh, look, it's a blessing and a curse, I have to be honest.
Yeah.
Because it did give me a chance to learn over the last year or so.
Yeah.
How to build a website, how to do social media, because there are elements I didn't really delve in before. I'm used to being in sales and being out on the road, and but either way, the product itself is still fantastic. So we just kind of go.
Yeah.
Hei! Veldig bra tur, altså. Hyggelig at du kunne hente meg, da. Ja, hvordan går det her hjemme i gamle Norge, da? Har du hatt fint mens jeg har vært ute? Har du hatt det fint mens... Har du begynt å trene? Nei, ikke si det! Du har bleka håret. Har du tatt sol?
Alright, today we're catching up with Walter Nand from Unique Cruises. He's talking to us about barge cruising in Europe. So we'll just head back and we'll have a listen to what he's got to say. Okay, well let's have a chat. So, I mean, we talk about hotel barges and things like that, but what is a hotel barge?
And that's a really good question, because the word barge itself really kind of puts people off, because when you hear the word barge, it sounds like a tugboat or something, and the cargo barges that we see when we are cruising down the Rhine or down the Danube. The luxury hotel barges themselves, we actually have to think of it more along the lines of being like a villa, and like a floating villa, if you like. Okay. So the biggest difference really is the scale. So if you think on the river ships in Europe that are cruising the Danube and the Seine and so on, they'll have 110, 199 people on board, just depending on which boat you're on.
Yep.
With Unique Cruises, the luxury hotel barges that we offer, the smallest that we have in France only has 2 cabins.
Okay.
And the biggest we have only has 10, so maximum of 20 people, and that's in Italy.
Wow, okay.
So that's scalability is really, or sizability really is the big thing there. On average, we're looking at 4 rooms on a barge. So 8 people, perfect for families, for small groups of friends that are wanting to go up and explore in Europe. Predominantly France, I should just clarify, most of the cruising is done in France.
Right.
But then we do have a vessel in Italy, going down the Po River out of Venice. Also, we do have 2 in Scotland, 1 in Ireland, and 1 in England, just outside of London on the Thames.
Okay.
So, but the rest of them are all based in France,
Right.
in
Okay.
different regions of France.
So, I mean, it sounds like with that amount of cabins, it sounds like it's ideal for groups of people just to charter that for themselves. I guess they don't run regular services that people can book onto. It's more a charter type thing.
No, you can do both.
Okay.
So if you're going up just by yourself or as a couple and you want to book just one room, you
Yep.
can do that, absolutely. What I'm really pushing in on the post-COVID side of things is, look, if you've got a couple of friends and family that you would like to travel with, then charter the whole barge. The reason for that is that it just becomes that little bit more COVID safe. You know who you're traveling with. There is a support vehicle that is attached to every barge. So that takes you out for your excursions and so on. So you're not on a bus with other people.
Okay.
So if you know who's in your group and you know that you've got your own vessel there with your own transportation, you can be in your own unique little bubble and explore different parts of Europe that you would not normally get to see. But again, in a very safe COVID way. So the barges, because they're small, do get a chance to be deep cleaned. One of the things that makes it really easy for travel planning is that every single itinerary, it doesn't matter which barge we're on, which country, which region, all the barges will start their journey on a Sunday afternoon and finish the following Saturday morning.
Right.
So that really helps with travel planning. But what it also allows is for the staff to go through and deep clean that ship between guests, and also to do a deep clean between with the vehicle as well, the sport vehicle as well.
Well, it's a fairly lengthy turnaround, I guess. I'm used to doing ships in Sydney where the turnaround's like 6 hours rather than rather than a full day and a half.
Yeah, and with a couple of thousand people. Like
yeah. So they operate, I guess, by sounds of it, mainly through France and stuff. I mean, the European ones, you've got, as you said, English and Scottish. In terms of the itineraries and things like that, are they? Well, I guess if you charter a cruise, you've got the option of going where you want, sort of thing, don't you?
Yeah, to a great extent. The different regions in France, for example, we can cruise through the Burgundy region, and there's 3 different regions through that Burgundy area itself.
Yep.
We've got barges in the Champagne region or down the Canals du Midi, for example. So there are some options available. The biggest thing really is if you're chartering is just to have a chat to me and we can work out other things if you're interested in. So for example, if you have a family and you wanted to go and visit the zoo, so we can arrange that as long as we know that ahead of time.
Yep.
Which is not on a normal itinerary. So we can just divert and because the vehicle is dedicated to you. So if that's what you'd like to do, then we can absolutely do that. We also have options for playing golf on a number of the different barges. So if you'd like 3 or 4 rounds of golf during that course of the week, then we can arrange that as well. And pretty much anything that you'd like to do. We just need to make sure that the start point and the end point are the same.
Yep.
Because obviously the barges need to go backwards and forwards.
Yep.
But the other thing too is that we do look at the itinerary because I'm starting to get inquiries through for people wanting to do a few things that are off the beaten path, if you like, and that's great. But we also want to balance that with the fantastic things that are already included that guests may not actually know about. So we'll go through and chat about that and say, oh, by the way, if you do this on this day, you might have to forego going to this castle or something like that, which has all this history. So what would you like to do?
Yeah.
And, we can incorporate both maybe, or just switch things around a little bit. One of the fantastic things about the barge experience is that we actually don't travel very far. It's we spend a week on board and we go and see these amazing things, have these amazing experiences. But on most cases, we could actually drive that whole distance in about an hour and a half or 2 hours.
Right.
Just
Okay.
going straight on the freeway. So it really is a much more closer and in-depth experience.
Cycling is big. So having bikes on board, and most of the barges, you've got options to sort of cycle along. And
absolutely, it is one of the highlights of being able to hop off the barge,
yep.
and just spend time out in the countryside. All the barges have tow paths right next door to it, so you can pretty much hop off any time and go for a bike ride and go and explore.
And leave the barge behind almost.
Leave the barge behind. Well, the barges don't travel very fast, right? So yeah, definitely leave it behind, and you'll catch up with them. Stop off at one of the local pubs, have a few pints while you're waiting for the barge to catch up.
Nice.
So just get a chance to meet with the locals.
Yeah.
Definitely cycling is a big deal. We do have the option for hiring e-bikes or electric bikes.
Yep.
But what I found, even for me, who is very exercise adverse, that you really don't need it, because the cycle paths are flat. You can just ride at your own pace and take your own time. The other thing I should mention, Matt, as we go through, is that I've spoken to a number of people that have gone to Europe, particularly in England, where they've hired their own boats and skippered themselves. Yachting cruises, we don't offer that as an option.
Okay.
We are very much on the premium end of the hotel barge cruising.
Yep.
Which means that every single barge comes with a qualified skipper, executive chef, and crew. So
you beat me to my next question. I was going to ask. That's all right. I was going to ask about, I guess, particularly if you charter, what sort of support do you have on board and things like that. But you've obviously got the captain guiding the ship. But in terms of meals and things like that, I mean, on a river cruise, you can normally expect to find meals in a restaurant or a buffet or something like that. So how does it work on a barge?
Exactly the same, except there's no buffets.
Okay.
The crew serve you meals, and which is particularly important these days with post-COVID, that we don't have any buffets, and there's only a few people on board anyway. So every barge has the executive chef, and the meals that they create are just phenomenal. And if you think that a ship's galley is small, scale it down a little bit more onto the barges. I don't know how they work in that environment, and they create these amazing meals. So everything is all included.
Okay.
So all your meals, breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks in between, are all included, as well as your beverages. So that is premium beer, wine, spirits. You don't have to lack for anything there.
I was just going to say, I guess dietary requirements would certainly be easily sort of catered for with that sort of.
Very much so. So long as we know beforehand.
Yep.
And we can send that information through to the skipper and to the chef, then there's not a drama with that at all. And we also, because there's not much room, you get such fresh produce because the chef is constantly having to go and buy from the local markets, because there's not a lot of room to store stuff on board.
Nice.
So so you just get these incredible fresh local delicacies as well.
Now, in terms, I guess, going back to facilities on the ship, you've got your cabins. Meals, is it like a sit-down restaurant type situation, or how does that sort of normally work?
It's essentially, because there's so few people on board, right? There's generally just one dining table, and we will sit around, and that's why I love the whole chartering aspect, because we are on there with friends or family, and we are just sitting around and enjoying our meal. And I usually liken it to going to somebody's backyard for a special birthday. Yeah. And everyone's sitting around, but it's catered. So you've got people that bring you your food and your drinks and so on, and everyone is just relaxed and just enjoying life. But at a birthday party, at some point, people have to get up and go home.
Yep.
Whereas when you're there for the week on the barge, you just either jump into the hot tub or go for a bike ride if you feel that way, or go to your room. It's just so relaxed. And it's just not a one-off. We just carry that on over the next few days. Then you can be as active or as relaxed as you like. But when it comes to just that meal experience, and for anyone that knows me knows I'm very social, and enjoy that long shared meal experience as we enjoy each other's company. And if we are in cruising mode over the lunch, for example, then you get to see the beautiful countryside as we're going through. And a lot of times we have two different dining options. So if the weather's really nice, usually we can sit outside and the dining table is set up outside, and then there's another one inside, just in case it's a bit too hot or raining or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, some great options.
Nice. So is there any downtime, like on a cruise? Is it cruising the whole time, or do you stop during the day and cruise at night, or stop at night and cruise during the day, or how does it?
Now, that's another really good question, and it's probably the biggest difference apart from size to regular river cruising, because on a regular river cruising on the big rivers, the river ships cruise every night in order to get to the next port in the morning. Whereas on a luxury hotel barge, we don't cruise at night. We actually dock, so we can go into town and we can have those experiences. That is probably the number one question I used to get when I was working with river cruising was, could we please just spend the night in town?
Yep.
On the luxury hotel barge, we have that. During the day, it's all about going out and, which is why we have the dedicated van for each of the barges, because we come off after breakfast, hop into the van, and we go off for our morning excursion, and then we'll come back and have lunch on board, typically, and then in the afternoon we'll go out for our afternoon excursion, and then come back. So it's not at a really fast pace, but we do see a lot of things and have a lot of experiences. And one of the things I really love is that because there are so few people on board, when we turn up somewhere, it's just us. We're not having to herd around and divide up into groups and things like that.
Yeah.
We just hop out of the van and we don't have to park in the coach car park. We can pull up into the normal parking lot, which usually is a bit closer, and then we can go and have these experiences. And in a lot of places that we go to, because of the operators that I'm working with, they have extra inclusions that are in there for our small groups, like with the wine tasting, or there's a couple of places where we have falconry examples. And again, you're just sitting there with just your friends and family with this collective experience. It's not like when you're on a bigger ship or something that you might have a collective experience, but then we're scattered to the rest of the world, never to see each other again, except on Facebook. So when we are sitting there, it's like, I remember that time that we did this. So it's like, let's do it again.
Mate, you sold me. It sounds awesome. So in terms of comparative cost, I mean, if you're looking at a river cruise and then looking at barge for a small group and friends and all that sort of stuff, how would the cost sort of compare?
It is fairly comparable to a luxury river cruise.
Right.
So looking at about $1,000, $1,200 per person per night.
Okay.
And that is, as I said, all inclusive. Includes your transfers to the barge, depending on where we're coming from.
Yep.
And also too, what I like to do is, for example, if we're in Paris, if we're in France, I like to include a couple of extra nights in Paris as an option.
Yep.
And then the transfer down to the barge, or in London, for example, same thing, so that you get your bearings, just get into the mode of where you are before we actually hop on board the barge.
Yep.
One of the things I don't like, and this is even when I was involved in river cruising, is that when people fly in and board the vessel the same day, we know from our feedback and from experience that you end up losing 2 or 3 days of your holiday just getting acclimatized.
Yeah.
But if we just have 1 or 2 nights in the port or the entry city, that changes the whole experience.
Yeah.
So we like to make sure we factor that.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's not to mention, possible flight delays or disruptions or whatever in even getting there. So, yeah, I mean, that's a big tip for anyone, I guess, traveling a long distance to get to a cruise or whatever. You definitely need to leave 1 or 2 nights before you start. All right, so where can people inquire about the product? Is it direct to you, or do you prefer?
Go through a travel agent would be my preferred option.
Yep.
Because I do what I do very well, and that is collecting the barge experiences and then being able to put that forward. Travel agents do what they do very well, which is add in everything else. I don't provide flights, I don't provide insurance or anything like that. So my recommendation is always go to your favorite travel agent.
Yep.
And they can contact me. If people do want to just get information from me directly, they can go to my website, which is www.uniquecruises.com.au. So that's a starting point there. And then if anyone has any questions, speak with a travel agent. they will have a lot of information already on hand.
Yep.
And if they can't answer it specifically, then they can get in contact with me, because most travel agents throughout Australia and New Zealand know who I am and how to get in touch.
Perfect.
And the last thing I'd say, Matt, is that I know that people are still a little bit concerned about booking too far ahead with their travel, making the travel plans.
Yep.
The reality is that particularly with these luxury barges, they are selling out for 2022 and 2023. So if you do want to have that experience, because the Americans and the Europeans are already pre-booking those holidays.
Yeah.
And in 2023 in France is the Rugby World Cup. So we know that that's going to be busy. And if people are looking and wanting to plan, remember, these are small vessels. They will sell out very, very quickly. So it sounds like a bit of a sales pitch, but it's not. It's just a reality as I'm looking at all the load factors coming over for 22, 23. So get in early and create your own unique holiday experience.
I guess last question, how many barges have you got? I mean,
We've got 23.
Okay.
And they pretty much all operate on the same season from April through to October. And we have 4 different styles. So there's from first class up to what I call the grandiose design. The only difference really between the 4 different levels usually is the decor or the size of the rooms.
Okay.
Other than that, they all have all the exact same inclusions.
So there are a few to choose from. I guess, when we're talking such small ships, it's just good to know that there are a few options there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And if people are flexible with their dates, then you can usually find something to work around.
Yep.
Now, I will say that, and this is breaking news for you, Matt, because this hasn't been released yet. I'm just getting the final proofing coming through now, because we're about to launch small ship cruising in Croatia.
Oh, wow.
As well.
Beautiful part of the world.
That'll be coming out. So you're the first one to hear about that.
There you go. That's exclusive, folks.
I just got the final draft for me to proof. It has just come through before I got logged on just now.
Okay.
So so that e-brochure will be coming out.
So how many ships down there?
We have access to about 45, 50
Oh, wow.
small ships. What I've done is I've actually selected the top 7 itineraries for Australians.
Okay.
And that's what will be featured in the brochure.
Okay.
So we have a lot more options available if people are looking for different things.
Yeah.
Then we can have a chat. But really just highlighted the top.
That's a beautiful part of the world. Love.
Oh, it's absolutely stunning.
Love that area.
Yeah, look, I've been wanting to get this program together for a little while.
Yeah.
And kind of all the pieces fell into place over the last couple of months that we've worked pretty hard to get it all together.
Perfect.
But watch the space, because it's all it'll be coming out in the next month.
Nice. Okay. Well, you heard it here first, folks. Oh, thanks for coming along, Walter. It's been awesome to chat with you, and it's an awesome product. And I've got a few friends in mind to possibly do a bit of a winery charter in a couple of years' time. So I'll keep you in mind for that, for sure.
Look, if you're into your wines, then a luxury hotel barge cruise on your private floating villa.
Oh,
in
that'd be
Burgundy,
perfect.
You can't go too far wrong with that.
No, absolutely. Yeah, it's funny because I'm not a wine drinker myself, but I'm usually the designated driver.
Oh, right.
But yeah, I don't have to drive this time. I can just enjoy it.
That's right.
All right. Well, yeah. Once again, thank you for coming along. It's an awesome product, and yeah, I hope people sort of really cotton onto it.
Fabulous. Thanks so much, Matt. Thanks for having me here.
Well, that was certainly, I guess, unique. Barge cruising is something I probably hadn't considered, but wow, that'd be awesome. I get a bunch of friends and head over to Europe or England and take one of those barges. It'd be a once in a lifetime experience. Definitely on the bucket list. Well, thanks for joining us today. Next week, we're going to have a chat, or next episode, we're going to have a chat with Tim Faircloth. Tim is a cruise travel photographer. And he's going to have a chat to us about what that actually means. What is cruise travel photography? What does he do? Where does he come from? And he's going to show us some of the photos and images he's taken for various cruise lines in brochures and things like that. So that'll be worth coming back for. So we'll see you next week, next episode, and thank you once again for joining us. Bye-bye.